Good afternoon, everybody. I want to apologize right off the bat for being a little late. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here, and we're glad to be here. Got Sister Brandy back with us tonight, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
We're going to sort of pick up where we left off last Monday, and we went 2 hours last Monday.
2 hours, yeah. And boy, people were.
Yeah.
When I left here, my phone was blowing up.
I can only imagine. So, yeah, we're gonna dig in. I need everybody right off the bat, if you would, to share. I'm gonna take just a second here and share with everyone. And if you could do that to help get the word out, we're on YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you can view from there. If you're driving, that's the best way too, because you can you don't have to watch it; you can just listen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an advantage for sure. And so yeah, it's just a good thing. And Sister Brandy, did you enjoy it last time?
I did.
We had a good time, didn't we?
I was smiling all the way home. Got home, watched it again because I wanted to watch it, and my sister didn't get to watch it because she don't know how to get the YouTube. She's old, so I had to watch it with her. But when my cousin was calling me, my aunt was calling me, they all wanted to make sure I was all right.
Make sure you was all right.
Yeah, my cousin was like, I don't want you to feel like you're going to hell and you've been on this journey with God and you're doing so great. I was like, I'm fine.
Good Lord.
I am fine. It's going to be just fine.
Good. Yeah. That's terrible.
Yeah, we got some people rattled, I can tell you that.
Yeah, there was, it's wild. I was still, as of 2 nights, Saturday night, Sunday morning, I was still getting messages from people Sunday morning, early.
Yeah.
And about the discussion.
I saw that.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
And so, I think that, of course, like I think you said it in the first talk, it's just not talked about enough.
It's not, yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but and so it makes it difficult.
It does.
And where it shouldn't be difficult because it's just part of the word of the Lord.
That's right.
And so, but it does make it difficult because nobody else talks about it. So then when you do talk about it, then they look at you like you're
crazy,
strange or something.
Yeah.
That's a crazy
like,
place.
Fell
over
off
there.
a rock or something.
Yeah. That's a crazy place over there. Talking
why
about
would
that
you
stuff.
go there? Why would you do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah, and when I told you I wanted to talk about it, you were like, "Hey, you sure about that?
Yeah,
You sure?"
yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." I'm not scared to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
No, and I don't. I don't think that I really don't think there's a reason to be scared, regardless of your situation. And because don't you want to know?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I just want to know.
Yeah.
And so, it's good. It's good. I got a lot of criticism, but at the same time, there was a lot of people I think was helped.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was, it's the most viewed podcast we have and the most viewed reel we've got was that little first short reel from it.
Yeah.
And so it lets you know that people were very much so interested.
Oh, yeah.
And which is a good thing. So I'm going to ask, we have some viewers on here now. I want to ask if you would to say, hey, tell us where you're viewing from, if you would. If you take a second, don't even take a minute. Tell us where you're viewing from. And we'd love to hear from you. And also, as we're discussing tonight, feel free to ask a question. And we will do our best to answer your question. And guess what? I may not have the answer to your question, which will be all right.
Yeah.
Because I'm just a human like everybody else. And however, if we do have the if we do have the answer, we'll sure share it with you. And so yeah, let's dig in.
Yeah, let's dig in.
So, where do you want to start at, Sister Brandy?
I want to start with lust.
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 Goodness. All right, ask me something. What you got? What are you thinking?
And I'm just saying that because I think a lot of men and women don't realize that they lust with their eyes, even if they don't touch or say words, or they just looking, I feel like, is lust.
Yeah.
So in the Bible, God says that, I just saw it a minute ago, but he talks about lust being pretty much adultery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So lust in the Bible's eyes would be what? Is it just looking? Is it going forth and doing things that you shouldn't do? What would you consider lust?
Okay. Well, let's just look at what Jesus said about lust. And the reason I say let's dig into what Jesus said is because in the same chapter, matter of fact, just 3 or 4 verses before he begins to speak on divorce, he first spoke on lust. And that's Matthew 5.
Yep.
Now, I didn't know you was going to go there, but so let's do this. Matthew 5:27 says, "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery." Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's drawing a picture now, where hey, it has been said all throughout time that a man or woman should not commit adultery. Mm-hmm. But I say unto you, whosoever looketh on a woman to lust. Okay, so that's not an act as far as a physical act. Mm-hmm. The first 27th verse was a physical act.
Right.
Don't be committing adultery.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. So whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery, not physically, with her already in his heart. Mm. So when you study on lust, it's to set your heart upon, long for, rightfully or otherwise, and covet, desire, would fain, to feign after, to lust. So what Jesus is saying, if you look on a woman or a man and you desire to have them in an unholy way, it's unholy because you're not married, obviously.
Right.
If you look upon them and you desire to have them in a way that is not the perimeters of the marriage bed is nowhere close to it. You're not married. You're and then you've just committed adultery in your heart. Mm. Now it's super wild you even brought this up the way you have, because me and a brother was speaking on this earlier this week, Sunday morning actually, because notice this. Jesus would tell them later on. He says basically the only way, the only right that you may put away your spouse is for adultery.
Right.
Okay. However, if you look upon a woman or man, we could put that in there. Mm-hmm. I think women have some of the same desires as men.
That's right.
And if you so much as look upon one and lust for that person, then you may not have done the physical, but spiritually you gave yourself to that person. Or even, what's even worse, this person may not have any feelings at all towards you, so you just trespassed her in a I mean, that's considered rape or molestation or whatever.
Right.
This is getting.
No, I agree.
It's getting strange now, and so you say, well, you invaded their privacy. Well, yeah, they don't know you're doing it, but I'm saying, in a sense, you're taking something that don't belong to you.
That's right.
They're not giving you consent, and people will say, well, it's just in your, it's just in your fantasy. according to the Lord, that's not fantasy.
Right.
That's real.
Right.
And so you may think you're just having a fun thought. You know, it ain't hurting nobody.
Yeah.
But the Lord says, no, that's real.
Yeah.
I read that as if, because before your members ever get out of control, your mind's done went there. Right? Nobody ever just woke up one day and was like, the first person, no, it don't work like that.
No.
They they think there's things thought through and talked through and on and on and on.
Yeah.
There's a pursuit, but it started somewhere in that person's heart.
Right.
It started in the deep, nasty part of this man or woman's heart. So the underlining element that we see in divorce would be what's in a person's heart. So he said, you've heard it said by them of old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And then he goes in, if your right eye offend thee, pluck it out. Cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that the whole body should be cast into hell.
So explain that.
Well, he's basically telling us to take inventory of what is failing us.
Okay.
So, as he said, if your hand offends you, cut it off. So, if you have a tendency to look upon a woman or a man and lust, you got to cut that out of you. You have to do surgery on your heart.
Okay.
Or that's going to take you to places you don't want to go.
Right.
And so he says, look, if you have a member of your body, your heart, spirit, your toe, your hand, your eye, whatever it may be,
right,
that it keeps drawing you to a place of death, then would you rather perish with that little thing? Or would you rather do surgery on that little thing
and save your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said, and he used the statement, he says, wouldn't you rather, for instance, go to heaven missing a finger than go to hell with everything?
Right.
So, I think that a person should do a self-examination, and they should say, all right, it's weird, strange. Even me and my son was just talking about this coming up the road. And I said, every man that I know, woman as well, but men for sure, because of obviously I have more, personal relations with men as far as a relationship thing. Most men, if not all, men that I know that are talented in some capacity or another, they've either intellectually or physically or musically, whatever the case may be, they have weaknesses. And the enemy will use this weakness to keep them distracted, keep them to get them off the bullseye. And because they're so valuable to the body of Christ, they're so valuable to the Lord, which is the body of Christ. And so the enemy will use little things. It don't have to be something big. Yeah. It could be something very small, insignificant, but yet it keeps them distracted enough that they're not at their full potential. And furthermore, the more he can separate them from their potential, the more he can keep them under some form of condemnation about, And so every man has a spiritual as well as a natural weakness. And maybe, obviously we'd say, well, we know what it is for men. It's just lust. It ain't always just lust. No. There's plenty of men that have no drive that way. And there's maybe addiction. Right. I know a very good man. He's gone on to his reward now. He was one of the most brilliant men that I'd ever had opportunity to be around. He was talented. He was an artist. He was just and good-looking guy, even an older man. He was he kept himself up. He was clean. He was hospitable. He was just the picture-perfect kind of gentleman. He could not leave alcohol on. He could not leave alcohol on. And so this was a weakness. Yeah. Well, this weakness wasn't just because he liked the taste of beer. or liquor or whatever he was drinking.
Right.
There was something else inside of this man that needed to be dealt with. So we blame it on the alcohol.
Yeah.
Well, they're a drunk.
Yeah.
They're just whores. They just like men.
Yeah.
They just like women. No, there's something else going on.
Yeah.
You don't just wake up and be like, I think I want 32 men this week.
Yeah.
I seen an article just this week where this girl has set out, this young lady has set out to sleep, or she just slept with 101 men in one day. And she said most children grow up with just one daddy. Mine's going to have 1,000.
Oh, Jesus.
So there's a beautiful gal now, beautiful lady, and what's broken though?
Right.
You don't get out of the bed and be like, I want to make history.
Yeah.
You don't do that. There's something broke. So the Lord is saying, examine yourself. What's broke? What's missing? What's corrupt? What's going on with you? Cut that out. Cut it. Literally do surgery on you and remove that. Or go to hell with it.
Right.
That's basically, in a nutshell, if the right hand offend thee, cut it off. Cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of the members should perish, and not that the whole body shall be cast into hell.
So in other words, you would say like, when you say like cut your arm off, so pretty much God is saying that's say you stole something, and that's wrong. So you would cut your hand off because you stole something. Well, back in the day, they did do that. When you stole, they cut your hand off.
Yeah.
So that's God saying you cutting your hand off is more promising to Him than you not cutting your hand off and trying to get into heaven with your dirty hand.
Yeah. You're going to make it without a hand if you cut off the problem.
Right.
It's like a man that has gangrene, and he's like, well, we got to remove your leg, or your hand or whatever, and he has to make this decision now. Do I want to die with this corrupt member,
right,
or do I want to remove the member and go lame? The goal is just to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
The goal is to get to heaven.
Right.
And so whatever surgery has to be done for that to happen, I think it's be well worth it.
Yeah, I agree.
And for sure, when a person really sees the face of the Lord, I believe they would all agree.
Yeah.
It was worth it to lose my eye. It was worth it to lose my hand. It was worth it to be poor. When I had plenty of money, I was useless.
Yeah.
Whatever your your handicap is, I told my son about a young man that I know, and he was super smart, brilliant, but he's addicted to gambling. So he'll work 3 or 4 months like the house is a fire, and then you won't see him for 3 or 4 months or 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it is, until he comes back and he's wasted, depleted, and he's no good to nobody, not even to himself. But he has the most potential, and so wouldn't it be better?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to nip that in the bud, get some real help? If you ain't going to seek the Lord, go to Gamblers Anonymous or something.
Find help somewhere.
Find help.
Yeah.
And so you could actually be a benefit to society rather than a nuisance. And so it's and again, this is the Lord. He's digging further than the exterior. He's looking now into the heart.
Yeah.
And he's saying, okay, if you're going to be if you're going to serve me, if you're going to follow me, if you're going to be able to do this, if it's in you to do it, then you're going to have to start looking at what you're actually thinking.
Yeah.
Where's your mind at? Because wherever your mind is, that's where your heart's going to be.
Right.
And so, again, he makes us start digging deeper now. It isn't the one that just got caught in adultery. It's the one that even didn't get caught.
Right.
And so, it's funny, especially in the ministry, what I've noticed is there's people that actually take pride in, they feel like they have a mandate from God to expose other ministers' sins.
Yeah.
It's like they have the calling of exposure.
Right.
And however, if you really could put some of these people under a holy magnifying glass, you'd find some of the same problems in their heart. but yet they didn't do it so they feel safe.
Right.
Fortunately, God sees it all.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps very good records. Nobody
Yeah.
keeps records like the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And so so this is what he's getting at. He says, you Pharisees will stone a person out of a drop of a hat. But I'm telling you, if you so much as think it in your heart, you've done it.
Mm.
You know, you'll stone a woman in a minute if you caught her in the act of adultery. Or I'm telling you, if you so much as covet that,
Yeah.
it's over for you.
Mm.
I see it, and I'm keeping record.
Do you think that, of course, God knew that we would do things that we should not do, which is why he gave us free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that every man and every woman has at one point in their life lust?
I would say that the majority of the people I grew up with, I'm sure did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the thing is too, though, you know, I'm going to say I may catch some heat for this, but you know, lust is a natural thing.
Right.
Meaning, I'm married Jody,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't just wake up one day and be like, oh, I see that girl, I love her already.
Yeah.
You know, there was some attraction there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say there was some lust there,
Yeah.
and there still is some lust there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a natural thing, and I may catch a lot of slack for that. And
But that's lust within your relationship,
Correct.
not outside of your marriage or
Correct.
outside of your relationship.
yeah. My point in saying that is everybody has that potential,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to lust.
Right.
However, you know, we have to, you know, guard our hearts and our minds and not, you know, lust after what don't belong to us. But, you know, look at it like this. Lust could be put in the same category as covet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see somebody have a big old nice house and a big nice car and they covet that? You know, the Lord, the law would say, don't covet your neighbor's possessions.
Right.
They're not yours.
Mm-hmm.
They're his. And he might have did something for that. He might have worked really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
If you wouldn't, you know, maybe you get a little different work ethic, you know, so don't be coveting. So my point in saying that is there's more than one way. There's more than one degree, I guess you may say, of lust. The issue that the Lord is dealing with is he's digging deep and wanting us to expose ourselves before him and be like, okay, I've got some problems and you're the only help.
Yeah.
I cannot do this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot do this
Yeah.
on your own. Now, if you could do this on your own, you wouldn't need the Lord.
Right.
So my granddaddy Price would always say, he would say, hey, I don't so much mind it hitting my mind,
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts hitting my mind. He said, because my mind is my filter before it gets to my heart. And that's a lot of truth because, you know, there's things that have come up in your mind all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But if you don't conceive that, you just shove that down.
Right.
Get behind me, Satan. You know, that kind of thing. Because where did that thought come from?
Right.
Where does that thought come from? And so, was it in the airwaves? You know, how does that get to you?
Mm-hmm.
And so, more than likely, it wasn't you to begin with.
Ah.
Does that make sense? Let's say, for instance, you roll out of bed in the morning and you've been going to church, you've been doing devotion. My point in saying those things is you've been really seeking the Lord
Right.
in your everyday life. And so, and you're riding to work and all of a sudden, bam, a thought comes into your mind that you know that my mind ain't been on nothing like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, it almost makes you, you know, feel nasty. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't come from you.
Mm.
I mean, how could it?
Right.
You've had your mind fixed on the Lord, the things of the Lord, and maybe doing your business and things like that. But yet you've been stayed upon the Lord. That's not you.
Yeah.
And you know, the Bible speaks about vain imaginations, and you know we have to slap that down, for lack of a better term. We have to speak that down and say, rebuke that.
Yeah.
And say, get thee behind me, Satan. Now, if you were to stop and just soak on that, meditate on that, and think on that,
That's a problem.
It's getting to the heart now. You're conceiving that.
Okay.
So again, if it hits your mind, and I always tell the youth, I said, look, there's plenty of things that's going to hit your mind that ain't you, because automatically youth will be like, oh my God, I'm nowhere near with God that I need to be. I thought this thought yesterday. And I said, well, how long did you dwell on it? Oh, not even a second. Then you didn't think that.
Right.
And yeah, it flashed before you, but he's the principality of the air.
Right.
The devil, the enemy's the principality of the air. He's the one got control of the principality that's really trying to destroy us,
right,
and trying to distract us and get us to think unholy things out of character. I don't put that on them.
Right.
I said, did you sit down and dwell on it? Did you take 30 minutes at lunch and think about it?
Yeah.
No. I repented. I said, then you didn't think that.
Yeah.
You was tempted by that. That was used to try to get you to indulge. So again, a lot of times I don't even consider that lust.
Yeah.
Because it has to be conceived. Your heart has to accept and be like, yeah, let's stay here for a minute.
Yeah.
What would that be like? Et cetera, et cetera.
Let's ponder on it.
Let's ponder on
Yeah.
that. Let's give it a little more thought.
Yeah.
So in that text, that's what we find is the Lord, man, he moves right into the 31st verse. It hath been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But, there's always a but.
Oh, yeah.
But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery. And then he says, you have heard that it been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself. So the Lord, he's saying the same thing he was saying in the 19th chapter of Matthew, a little different wording, obviously. But he's saying, look, if you put away her, except for a just cause, if you put her away, then, that's going to be adultery. You're going to cause her to be adulterer. And I think that, wouldn't you agree that when the Lord is judging, this is going to be tough, but when the Lord is actually judging our heart, he's looking at you and he says, okay, buddy, you've lusted after that lady, or you've lusted after that man, or whatever it may be. So yeah, you caught your spouse in adultery, but haven't you already did it? Now, don't it? It really it starts taking away our excuse.
Yeah.
It really becomes a difficult cross to bear.
Yeah.
So now again, if we're going to believe the Bible,
yeah.
If you're not going to believe that lust is adultery,
yeah,
then okay. Jesus thought it was.
Yeah.
He preached it was.
Well, if he says it is, then
I'm
down with his word.
Ain't that what he was saying to you?
Yeah.
And so, so let's say you caught your spouse, and so what are you supposed to do? I mean, now if you tell me you've never lusted, you're clean as hospital's cotton, I have no reason not to believe you. I'm like, okay, well then, either way, it's on you.
Yeah.
You can do whatever. It's your decision at the end of the day.
Right.
However, the Lord sees it all.
Yeah.
So, I would ask this question: if someone come to me to be, to be counseled in that way, I would ask the question, okay, sir, have you ever lusted over a woman since you've been married? Mm-hmm. And if he said, well, I've looked, then I would be like, okay, then, yeah, you caught her. Mm-hmm. She didn't catch you.
That's right.
But the Lord did.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think if we looked at, and again, it's tough.
But don't you think that if you are, I don't think anybody's perfect, and I think everybody makes mistakes no matter how close you are to the Lord. Do you think that a man or woman who lusts, if they don't feel convicted about it, that's a sign that, hey, you're kind of lusting with your heart, it's in your heart then, if you feel no conviction upon what you've done?
number one, if a person feels zero conviction, then I would even question if they can even be saved. And that may sound harsh, but
yeah,
I mean, think about it. If a person does not feel some type of conviction for lusting after someone else that does not belong to them, someone, and I'm not talking about you and this young man are been flirting or something. I'm talking about somebody that don't even know you.
right.
You know, someone that you're just passing by. You meet in church every now and then. You know.
Yeah,
That's a whole new level. And if you're doing that and you're not feeling conviction, I would probably figure that you could probably kill somebody and not feel conviction.
right.
So if there is no conviction there, number one, we're not talking to someone that has a conscience of God. I mean, now that may be a little strong for people. They may not agree with that, and that'd be okay. However, I think that if you belong to the Lord in any capacity, maybe you've not surrendered your life to Him.
Right.
Maybe you've not surrendered your life to Him. But if you belong to Him, you feel something about that. You feel some type of way. I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That could be conviction talking. And I just need to quit right now, you know.
Yeah.
So, no, you're going to feel conviction if you belong to the Lord.
Right.
That's going to be there. His seed remains in you. You're going to feel conviction. There's going to be something that grips you and says you need to stop. Now, whether you stop or not, that's on you.
That's on you.
And
right.
you'll get the lashes. You know, he chastens those he loves. However, that is that would be if a man or woman has no conviction of that, then right off the bat, I would just question their born again experience
Right.
if they're claiming to be Christian.
Right.
If you claim to be a Christian, you got to have conviction.
Right.
It don't
Over anything.
anything,
Not just lust.
not just
over
lust. Anything that is contrary to God. Anything. And I'm of the opinion you don't even have to know it's right or wrong.
Right.
Once you get the Spirit of God in you, He'll
let you
lead
know.
you and guide you
Yeah.
into all truth and righteousness. So we got to stop looking at it. Well, I got born again when I was 5 years old, and I just ain't read that part of the Bible. I'm sorry, you didn't get born again at 5 years old.
That's right.
You might have went to an altar and cried a little tear or two, but you ain't got born again. Some people might do, but I'm just saying, as a general rule, you haven't.
Yeah.
And if you have the Spirit of God, it's already slapping you upside the head, being like, no, bozo,
Yeah.
straighten up. Because you don't have to read the Word if you have the Spirit in you.
Right.
Now, yes, you will read it. You will study it. Somebody will take me and be like, you said you ain't got to read the Bible. No. What I mean by that is the Spirit of God, if it dwells in you, it will convict you when you do something wrong.
That's right.
And you don't have to read Paul that says, no, you shouldn't do it.
Right.
The Spirit will do that. And so, I think that, in that sense that we have to just be obedient to the will of the God, to the will of the Lord, and to whatever conviction is, whatever it is eating at you. Maybe you like to gossip, maybe whatever the case is. I don't know. Dream up something. Maybe you like to get drunk and beat your wife every Friday night. I mean, whatever it is.
Right.
Then you have to, you got to get a born again experience, and then you have to be obedient to God.
Yeah.
You have to be obedient to the Spirit of the Lord. So there was something else I thought you was going somewhere else, but maybe I was just going somewhere else.
Where was you going?
So yeah, in this, and I know that people. This is what I was going to say. When the Lord starts breaking it down, when Jesus starts breaking down this text about, hey, you've did it already in your heart. I believe what the Lord is doing, not trying to do. He don't try. He does.
Right.
Is He's taking away all the excuses from us. It's like, okay, you're gonna put her away for adultery. I get it. That's ugly. It's rough. It's unfaithful. She did a horrible thing. But what about last year at so-and-so, and you lusted after so-and-so, and that's sort of like pulling well, I didn't do nothing. I didn't act on it. No doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that acting on it is worse than thinking it.
Right.
Because someone now has been absolutely, has, the spouse has been done as dirty can be done.
Right.
Okay. So I'm not even saying that's the same thing.
Right.
I'm saying, though, that, in a man or woman's spirit, I think the Lord is trying to draw attention to, don't be so quick
right.
to just throw this person away.
Mm-hmm.
You did lust, so it could have been you. Does that
yeah.
make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not the same. One of y'all ended up in a motel and the other one didn't.
Right.
However, if you keep living like this,
mm-hmm.
giving yourself to lust, if you keep living that way, will you not end up in the same place?
Right.
So I think it requires us then to really do a self-examination and decide, how close am I to being an actual adulterer? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, and again, I think this is more to just bring us to feel the weight of, okay, you're going to throw your spouse, you're going to give her a written bill of divorcement for this adultery.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I consider you an adulterer as well.
So in a marriage, let's just say, for instance, the man, he doesn't physically commit adultery, but he lusts over videos, pictures, women on the streets, and it's constant and it doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
If that would be considered, if it's considered adultery and you just can't handle it anymore, and you decide, okay, I've tried to fix everything, now you just continue to do this lusting and whatever, it's time for a divorce.
Yeah.
Is that terms wrong still on divorce level?
Well, this is what I would have to say. At what point how do you prove that's lust?
Right.
So then we get it, and I believe this is where the Lord is at. Look, Jesus, which was God manifested in the flesh,
right.
was saying, look, I see your eyes, and I see your heart, and I see when the two meet. You might have caught her physically, but I've caught you spiritually. I don't believe any. Obviously, I will read this because I think this is. I had some. When you look at the word adultery, in the Greek, this word is porneia. So it sounds sort of like pornography, porneia, and it appears, multiple times in the New Testament, and it's always the umbrella for immoral sexual behavior. So, adultery, fornication, extramarital sex, incest, prostitution, homosexual acts, bestiality. So my point is, this word adultery, we think of just one thing.
Right. Cheating on your spouse.
Yeah, it covers a multitude of things. Because again, the Lord isn't just looking at the physical act.
Right.
He's looking at he's wanting us to understand the gravity of the marriage commitment. I mean, it's when there's infidelity.
Right.
That's being just unfaithful in any area.
Right.
Man, this is hard because I'm a human like everybody else. We've all had our own struggles and difficulties and problems, and however, if we want to get it straight, if we want to get it right, if we want to have successful marriages, then really do a deep look at it. And again, the Lord he's not wanting, hey, don't get distracted by the act.
Right.
Get focused on what puts you in the act. And so when you start looking at the word adultery, then you start saying, oh, I see pornography. Obviously lust, fantasies. I see immoral things, whatever. We could go into some other things that people do in private.
Right.
That's immoral in the eyes of God. And so they think they're fine. Listen, I'm going to go a little further. Just because your spouse is okay with it, don't make it right.
Right.
You and your spouse can be in agreement about something. And so y'all feel like, oh, well, we're in agreement. We can do this.
Yeah.
He knows what I'm doing, and I know what he's doing. And I mean people that profess to be Christians. I'm not talking about going out and getting another partner. I mean just things that they may do in their own personal life. That what that does is it breeds things in their spirit. It produces things. It turns on things in their spirit that was not intended to be turned on.
Right.
And I had people over the years would tell me, well, the marriage bed is undefiled. I said, it don't mean you can rape one another.
That's right.
That's not what that means. It simply means there's a pureness. There's a place there that God has chosen for certain for intimacy to take place. However, there's boundaries to that.
Yeah.
You can literally turn your wife into a beast in the marital bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, if you turn him or her one into an animal, and there ain't so much we can say,
right.
But if you start, my point is, even in the marriage bed, there can be unhealthy lust.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there a desire for more?
Right.
What is there? What's going on there? Why do they want to? Why does a person? Why does a spouse? I'm talking about a husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they pushing the boundaries?
Yeah.
Wanting more, wanting this, wanting that. There's something there.
Mm-hmm.
There's something there. Woo! I'm telling you, I'm gonna give you something. Is everybody okay out there? I'm going to give you something that I feel like the Lord showed me, and this will probably not be accepted by a lot of people. But I believe that young men and women that believe they were born feminine,
mm-hmm.
homosexual, lesbian spirits.
Right.
I believe that was produced in conception, meaning I believe that the mother and the father made that child in the wrong spirit.
Ah.
I believe they fell into a perversion in that marriage bed and produced that child. That's what I believe. I believe that not everything is lawful inside the marriage room. I believe there's boundaries. And you know it a little bit.
Oh yeah.
You know when you're going too far, and you know when that's going to open channels to where the one or the other could want to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do believe that there's a lot of things taking place in the so-called marriage bed that is producing a generation of children that will pervert sexuality. Mm-hmm. They'll pervert it. They have no other choice, and they're right.
Never thought of it that way.
They're right to say I was born this way.
Yeah,
because they were. That don't mean there's salvation for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that. It don't mean the Lord's going to look over it because the mom and daddy was Fruit Loops. No. It's the consequences remain.
Right.
However, if you're gonna live fallen, you need to expect fallen things to come from you.
Right.
If you're gonna reproduce in a fallen way, then you better expect some fallen fruit.
Right.
And there's things that I believe that we have to really guard ourselves and just look at from a different angle and just consider because just because we put a ring on somebody's finger, not everything's legal.
That's right.
So that's just a thought.
Never looked at it that way though, but that makes total sense.
Yeah, that's what I believe, and I believe the Lord. I was preaching one day, and it just hit me, and I shared that, and of course I had a family get upset with me.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I said, well, and I explain it like I do now. Hey, you don't have to believe it. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's thus saith God.
That's what you feel in your heart.
I feel in my heart that's exactly what takes place.
Right.
Not in every case.
Yeah.
I believe some kids are born and they get involved with different things and then they go the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But I believe there's some that's absolutely is born that way.
Yeah.
And it may not be every time it's because mom and daddy, but I'm telling you, mothers and fathers are doing things they ain't supposed to be doing.
Right. Wow.
And it's producing kids that should never been produced in that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
That's That's a good look on it, though. I
Yep.
kind of, now that you say that, you really get to thinking about that, then that would make sense.
Well, there's life in
yeah.
that seed, and you're getting in a certain spirit, and you're doing things in a way that may not be holy,
Right.
and if it's not holy, it ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that we should really check ourselves
Yeah.
and check our spirit, and why do I feel to do these things? What's in me that wants to do these things? Why is this not enough?
Right.
On and on and on. Ask those questions. You're an adult, everybody.
Yeah.
Ask those questions.
Yeah.
Examine yourself and see where that is, where that's coming from.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that there's a hunger for more when there shouldn't be a hunger for more.
Right.
So that's where I'm
That's
at.
good
with it.
stuff.
That's where I'm at.
Probably
with
not for everybody, but
it. Right. I'm not seeing all the comments. I know we've probably got a lot of comments,
I don't see anything.
but I would figure that we would have, but I ain't seeing many. I figured it'd be people.
They all
telling-
probably just sitting there looking at at the screen, going, "Oh Lord, what is he talking
What's
about?
coming
What's
next?"
going on?" So I want to talk about. Well, I wanted to ask you. When we talked last Monday, we talked about how when God puts two people together. Somebody asked me, "How do you know
Yeah.
that God put you two together?" So, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, actually, I think someone even asked us last week, and I've given that some thought because I told him, I said, I'm really not 100% sure, and I may be, it may just haven't dawned on me, who knows, but and so this is what I suggested. I suggest that people, number one, they don't, if they're not already married. Now, this is the deal. I'm going to tell you what happens. Most people that will ask that question is somebody that's already married to a spouse.
Mm-hmm.
People that is not married won't ask that question.
Yeah.
And so that person's already looking for an out,
Yep.
and which is monkey business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm leery to give them an answer anyways,
Okay.
for it to be used against me.
Yeah.
Well, the pastor said that you're not mine.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that.
I ain't said he ain't yours, or she ain't yours, or whatever.
Well, I'll just say from my experience, being married prior, I got married at 17 years old, was married for 13 years. And then when I divorced under a lot of reasons. And I can say that being in my late 30s, getting remarried, praying for a man that met these criteria, God,
Yeah.
he's got to be like this. He's got to do this. I think praying for that and then it happening and those exact things that I prayed for were shown, I think that's a sign to know.
Yeah.
There's going to be something.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not going to just not be something. If God is meant for you to be with that person, there's going to be something there. Even though you may have struggles, you may have arguments, there is that deep gut feeling that this is the person God sent to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, this is what even last week what I said. If God put you together, somehow or another, because he did put you together, you can just withstand anything.
Yeah. You
It's
can
just-
handle his worst of his worst
It's
or
what,
her worst.
bring it on.
Yeah.
She's a devil, but bring it on. He's a devil, but bring it. We can fix it. We can get through it no matter what. If God's in it and he's put it together, you really can take a beating. I know people that's been through hell on earth.
Yeah.
And they act like they love one another the same, maybe better. And I'm thinking, how in the world they make it? Well, they only made it because the Lord put them together.
Yeah.
So if a person, is already married, then number one, if you're a person you're already married, and especially if you've been married more than once already, quit even asking that question.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
Just stay with what you got and make the best out of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you something else too, and I'm going to pull this scripture up. I've been studying on this, but in 1 Corinthians, the 7th chapter, Apostle Paul starts dealing with marriage. And first of all, he starts and he's like, hey, I'd rather you be like me. Mm-hmm. And he was a eunuch. And he says, however, if you can't control your flesh, then, you don't want to be a eunuch.
Yeah.
It's better for you to marry than to burn.
Right.
Meaning, if you can't be without a spouse, then by all means, find the one you're supposed to be with, mm-hmm. and marry, and chill out, mm-hmm. settle, whatever, and and do right by God and by man and everything else. And so, Paul is bringing this out. Excuse me, and he says, the 9th verse. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. I'll point out two things. When he says better to marry than to burn, he's not talking about hell.
Right.
He's talking about a man or woman burning in their flesh, mm-hmm. A desire. Mm-hmm. And he says, and unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord. Let not the wife depart from her husband. But, and if she depart, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband. And let not the husband put away his wife, but to the rest speak I, not the Lord. So I've had people to call me and they ask me, hey, should I leave my wife and mm-hmm. go back to my first wife? And I'm like, no. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that nobody leave nobody.
Right.
Matter of fact, I'm trying to get you to stay.
Yeah. Fight for it.
And work it out. Figure it out. And then what I'm even more so trying to get young people and young married people to do is, before you get married, make sure.
Yeah. I was just telling that to my daughter today. I was like,
it's the right one.
Yeah. I said, please pray. Please pray about this, because
yes.
I said, I don't want
Seek
you to
the
go
Lord.
to hell.
Seek the Lord about it, because and don't marry a person that you and him are in the same condition now. Mm-hmm. Marry a person. For instance, I've told my son this. I said, look, you want to get a woman that loves the Lord. Mm-hmm. Well, my son is he's 18 years old, and he's in a weird little place to where, yes, he knows Jesus is real. Yes, he knows he'll probably always go to church, but at this moment in his 18-year-old mind, he still ain't serving the Lord in the capacity that he needs to be. Mm-hmm. I said, don't you dare look for a woman in the same condition as you. Mm-hmm. You look for a young lady that knows she loves the Lord. Yeah. Because you want a young lady, if you're a young man, that's going to be able to adapt to what eventually you're growing into.
Right.
And that boy was raised in church. He's going to go to church. Mm-hmm. Even when he ain't no count, he's going to go to church.
Right.
And I hope he never has no days where he's no account. But I'm saying if that be the case, and he got out of church, and he still needs that wife there that is relative to church, mm-hmm. and to God, and to knows that's where we're supposed to be. And that's, so don't marry nobody in the same condition you're in.
Yeah.
Marry someone
that's good.
That's more focused, that look at yourself 20 years from now. Son, where do you expect you're going to be 20 years from now? He said, well, I'll probably be sort of like you. Well, then you need to marry a woman like your mama.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so now if you're going to just as soon as you can get out of church and get out of my house and go bonkers and die bonkers, mm-hmm. then by all means, marry you one to go bonkers with.
Right.
You ain't going to do that, because I'm going to kill you if you do.
Right. You're going down, boy.
However, so I would tell Don't marry someone in the same condition that you're in. Now, I know I've got parents on there be like, bless God, don't send them to my house. I'm saving my daughters. I get it.
Yeah.
I've got 5 girls, and there ain't no deadbeat coming up in here either and getting one of them.
Right.
Right? So I get what you're saying. However, I'm telling you what I'm telling my son. Find you a young lady that you know that he's not a bad boy. He ain't out drinking, drugging, acting bonkers. I'm just saying he ain't on fire like I think he should be on fire.
Right.
However, I know that's coming one day. And so I'm like, look here, you marry a woman that's going to adapt to that.
Yeah.
You marry a woman that's going to love God right there with you.
Right.
Just worship God right there with you. Maybe the Lord maybe even call you to preach. Who knows?
Right.
You better have one that's going to amen you, pray for you. So don't marry one in the same condition you're in.
Okay.
Marry the one that's going to adapt to the condition you know you're going to be in the future if you're not there yet. So, you know, and I think that in that case, you know, this is what I'm trying to tell the young people is, all right, look, you know, don't even put yourself in the position to where you even have to start negotiating about, okay, well, this just ain't working out. Don't even put yourself in that position.
Right.
This is a marriage vow that you make between you and God. And so just go into this and ready to it's for life.
Yeah.
He said, for unto the married I command you not, but the Lord. Let not the wife depart from her husband. He says, but if she depart, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. This man or woman, either one.
Yeah.
Don't be putting them away. All right? He said, but the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. If the woman which hath an husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. All right? Now, in Apostle Paul's day, what he was dealing with was this. There was a lot of people that started out a marriage in idolatry. They were both in idolatry, or they were both under a Jewish religion, under the Jewish religion. Well, the Church of Christ, the Lord Jesus Christ, God's church, the Lord's church, is coming now to fruition. And so there's people, a wife here, a husband there, that is being converted. Well, they go back home, and she's like, baby, I just got the revelation of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't be bringing that crap around me. This is real talk.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be bringing that stuff around me. Girl, you crazy.
Yeah.
Well, she'll try to convert him, maybe. And maybe a couple months goes by. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
My father served this God. My grandfather served this God. This is where I'm dying, honey, is serving this God. Well, in today's society, you'd be surprised how many women I've had to come up to me and be like, look, my husband, I've tried everything. I pray for him. He's just not spiritual. And so he's dragging me down.
Yeah.
So what they're wanting me to do is be like, you probably should leave that WAP.
Yeah.
So Paul fixed it to where you can't say that. Paul said, if the unbeliever wants to stay with you, you can't leave him.
Right. Somebody just texted me a question.
All right.
What does he think unequally yoked means?
What does he think unequally yoked is? Well, and yeah, there's a. All right, let me finish this thought.
Okay.
Because my old brain will go bonkers. And then we're gonna get unequally yoked. So Paul said, look, if the idolater wants to stay with the little Christian lady, she can't put him away. So you can't come in one day and be like, well, you know what? We're just not on the same path no more.
Yeah.
I love Jesus and you don't. And he's everything to me. And so you won't surrender to the Lord. So we just can't be together.
Yeah.
Paul said, no, if the unbeliever wants to stay, you can't put him away. However, if the unbeliever says, I can't live with you, Jesus freak, I ain't going to serve Jesus and I don't want to be with you no more.
Yeah.
He says, then you're not bound to him.
Ah.
So you're released.
Yeah.
But the unbeliever has to make that decision, not you.
Okay.
not the believer.
Yeah.
Same way with the husband. The husband gets converted and comes home. You can't kick her out because, well, I'm spiritual and you're not. No, you were both in sin together.
Yeah.
One of y'all was fortunate enough to hear the voice of the Lord. And then Paul would go on in to say, because the righteous conversation of the wife can win.
Yeah.
So just stay there.
Yeah.
You loved one another 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Getting a little Jesus shouldn't hinder that.
That's
Maybe
right.
it should make you love him more. So, all right, now, watch. The reason I said let's finish that thought, because, you know, some people will say this, but we're unequally yoked. I'm like, what do you mean you're unequally yoked? You married the gonzo.
Yeah.
Were you unequally yoked then? Well, no, we met each other in the bar. So you wasn't unequally yoked. So you mean to tell me just you're already married now, got a child maybe, and now you got converted, now you're unequally yoked?
Yeah.
That don't even make no sense. Paul just nipped that in the bud.
Yeah.
If he wants to stay with you unequally yoked, you may want to even call him yoke.
Yeah.
Mr. Yoke, come here.
Yeah.
And he may call you unequal.
That's right.
No. Paul said, you stay like you are.
Yeah.
If he don't want to leave or she don't want to leave, meaning the unbeliever,
Right.
whichever one that's not really, really sold out for the Lord, if they don't want to leave, you have no means of putting them away. No. You started this thing together, both in sin.
Yeah.
You were just fortunate enough to get called out.
Yeah.
And who knows? He or she may be called out next week, 6 months from now, or whatever the case may be. However, unequally yoked, if you're not married. Now, I believe we could absolutely, let's just pull that up. Thank you, Lord. This is in 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. And what you'll notice in this chapter, 2 Corinthians 6 chapter, he's talking about we're being the temple of the Lord. So we're the temple of God. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with darkness? What concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? What agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God. As God hath said, I will dwell in them and walk in them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, says the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. So in this case here, God has established a physical order. For instance, what we find, and of course he's speaking of you and I, the body of Christ.
Right.
And so we have to be careful who we fellowship with. Meaning, I tell this about our young people all the time. I says, interesting enough, just as soon as you start trying to live the Bible, like really live it, read this scripture, for instance, be like, okay, I'm going to live. You will have other people that go to church every Sunday come against you.
Yeah.
They're not on the same page.
Right.
Because number one, they're not living this. They don't have the fear of the Lord at this moment. Don't mean they never will.
Right.
But at this moment, they don't have the fear of the Lord like you do. And here you are, you're trying to really, I need to know, where I'm headed.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm pleasing to him. And so, so Paul would say, look, if it's dragging you down,
yeah,
you got to take the yoke off. When they put two together, then they had to yoke those together that they could only be one lead. So they had to yoke them together in the way that they did not work against one another.
Yeah.
Or else, talking about the oxen, or because if they put them together where they worked against one another, then they would wear out way too easily.
Yeah.
But if they worked together, had the same vision in mind, then guess what? We're going to plow a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And we're both going to go home tired.
Right.
But we're going to have a full day's work. And so if you link up with someone, if you fellowship with someone, if whatever the case is, if you rub shoulders with a person or people or church that does not have the same standard of holiness as the Bible prescribes,
Right.
not what you prescribe,
Right.
but what the Bible prescribes, and they're always nitpicking you.
Yeah.
Well, you ain't got to do that. So to be unequally yoked is someone that's just not on the same dimension as you.
Right.
And so you say, well, can that be, can a person be unequally yoked and get, well, sure. You should know within the first date whether or not you and bozos can be yoked or not. You should know very quickly. Yeah. Number one, if you're a Christian girl and you found him in the club,
he's not the one.
Yeah, and you're probably not a Christian girl.
That's right, because why were you in the club?
Yeah, so no, it's already if you're unequally yoked.
Right.
And so, and now if you're already married, then you just, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They're, unless he's got to hire them, then you or she, whatever, you just. You better just ride it out.
Right.
Now, of course, if you're going home every evening and you're going to work with black eyes, I mean,
that's a different story.
I'm just saying, theoretically speaking, just because you don't like the person today, I can't help you.
Yeah.
The Bible don't help you.
Right.
I've had people to tell me, they say, well, I just don't love her no more. And I'm like, well, why not? Well, I don't know. Things just change. Do you know love isn't what everybody's made it out to be?
Right.
You don't have a choice. Love is something you have to do.
Right.
You may not like somebody, but you're going to have to love them.
Right.
And so you make that choice not to love that person. Whoever it is, man or woman, either one. And so you have to work at that. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, I don't even know him. He didn't say if you knew him. He said love him.
That's right.
That means treat them the way you'd want to be treated. And that's one of the commandments.
Yeah.
So when love your wife like Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. All right? Again, you say, well, she ain't done me nothing but dirty. You mean to tell me the church did the Lord anything but dirty?
Yeah.
But he still loved the church.
Yeah.
He loved you, loved me. Paul said while we were in our sins, he died for us.
Yeah.
So love isn't a feeling.
Yeah.
You have to work at love. You have to make you have to make yourself love.
Right.
It's a decision you make in your mind. I'm going to love. And love looks a lot like sacrifice.
Right.
And so when a person tells me that, then what I know is they've got somebody else on their mind, on the brain or whatever, or they wouldn't even be talking like that.
Yeah.
There's some other monkey business going on. And so, no. It don't work like that. So if you're, number one, you should know right off the bat, if you're yoking with someone, that you're just unequal. It don't matter if you go to the same church. I ain't suggesting that. That can be part of it, obviously. But if you're in a place where you know you're on two different paths, God's taking me here.
Yeah.
But you say you're satisfied with the Lord here. Do you want to pull that person the rest of your life? Do you want to drag them the rest of your life?
Right.
Well, I like going to church about once a month, and you go to church 3 times a week. Do you want to drag that person the rest? I would be looking at things from, is he lazy? Is he a worker? Is he this? I would be looking at every scale, body, soul, and spirit.
Right.
And do I want to yoke up with this dead weight? Or he may be gangbusters. And you may not be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at what point? So more and more when we read this text here about the unequally yoked, what is showing is we should just not have fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness. So anything that is depleting us from our righteousness, from our holiness, then that's what we need to sever ties with.
Yeah.
It's not personality.
So would you say for the young people who are, 18, 19, 20 years old and starting to look for that one person to spend their life with, would you say that one of the questions on your first date should be, what are your feelings about the Lord?
Sure. Yeah, but I know they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Majority of them are not. But you most definitely should.
I think most teens are scared to
Yeah.
talk about the Lord and
Yeah.
to their other peers.
It's easier when you meet them in church because, or meet them in a church setting, church camp, something like that. Then they're at least got similar ideas.
Right.
And I would just ask all the questions.
Well, I mean, if you say, hey, how you feeling about the Lord? And he gets up in one's way, then he wasn't the right cookie.
Hey, I'm just going to be very transparent. I was very unique. I mean, I just straight up asked, hey, how many boyfriends you ever had?
Yeah.
Did you sleep with them? I mean, I want to know all the details.
Yeah.
And because in just a few minutes, I know if I'm moving on or not.
Yeah.
And those are the questions I ask. And I right or wrong, I tell my son, I'd find out.
Yeah.
I want to know their history.
But I think kids nowadays are, because I've heard people say, I don't care what they did in their past. That's their past. It ain't got nothing to do with
They'll care
me.
one day.
Yeah. Because it can come back to haunt you.
Oh, it's going to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they'll care. They talk that smack right now.
Yeah.
Because most girls today, even the married ones are talking to 5 or 6 other guys. Mm-hmm. And most guys are talking to 5 or 6 other girls.
Right.
And they're just fruity as a fruitcake. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking to that many, surrendering your spirit and your ideas and your thoughts to that many, you're not committed to any of them.
Right.
Not even the one you're married to.
Right.
So you've got a real mess going on.
Mm-hmm.
And no, you want to know.
Yeah.
You want to know where that person's been. You want to know all about them. Mm-hmm. If you're not asking those questions, you're not serious.
And if you're not willing to answer them, then you're not worth it.
Yeah, if you're not willing to answer them, you need to move on.com.
Yeah.
Because you ain't going to work out.
No.
Not in my camp anyways.
Right.
And, these kids around here, I freaked them out when they first come around here. We'd be sitting down and I'd say to them, you got a boyfriend? Mm-hmm. Then I may ask, well, what's he look like? Mm-hmm. How old is he? Y'all sleeping together?
Yeah.
I had one boy at the dinner table been a little while now. Time's running fast. I said, you smoke dope? And he's like, I just quit. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes ago, because you just asked him that.
I just quit. I said, really? I said, you're just a degenerate, ain't you? Mm. And he said, just about.
Yeah.
The thing is, just go ahead and just say what, ask the questions, get to the bottom of it. Of course, I wouldn't critical of him. I just want to know who I'm dealing with.
Right.
Maybe they'll tell you, maybe they won't, but you never know unless you ask.
That's right.
And so, no, I think that, you find out with just a few minutes whether or not this person and you are compatible.
Yeah.
You'll save yourself a lot of drama,
yeah,
a lot of trouble, a lot of wondering if I'm right or wrong in marrying, divorce, and all this jazz, and just do it right. Georgia, she said, I think a good tale is, in my case, even when we struggle the most, there is no one I would rather be with. Oh, even when I couldn't stand him, I still craved him, needed him, wanted only him. But I do agree with Brandy. Praying for certain things in a spouse and then seeing that prayer come to life. I don't know what Brandy said, so.
Me. She's talking about what
I'm sorry. I thought maybe the other Brandy had said
Parrish,
something.
Yeah. Talking about how I prayed for a man like what I wanted in a man.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a good one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that, a lot of people today, what you never hear? You never hear men talking about unequally yoked. Mm-hmm. You never hear them. Married men? Well, I tell you, I'm unequally yoked to her. Men are very, very easy to please. Mm-hmm. Very easy. You women, not so much. Men, you just feed them and, have a comfy place for them to lay down. Mm-hmm. And, love on them. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Make sure they have some socks and some underwear.
Yeah, they're good.
They're pretty golden.
Yeah.
You won't never. They don't care if you get super spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. You know, you won't never hear them say, "I just don't know if we're equally yoked or not."
Yeah.
You won't never hear them. I don't know if I've ever heard.
I don't
a man
think I've
say it.
ever heard anybody say that before.
But women, just as especially if the women have 2 or 3 other women that they can cackle with
Yeah.
and get around, and then I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna give
You're
these.
gonna get in so much trouble.
I'm gonna give these men a heads up. If your wife likes hanging out with 2 or 3 other old women that ain't happy at home, you listen to get a divorce, cuz.
Because they gonna convince her.
You ain't been doing nothing wrong. You just been working, coming home, watching a show or something, and going to sleep. You carnal, but you faithful. You know, you come home
Right.
and you bring the bill money. But she don't like the way you smell this
Right.
week. Hey, you go on, Jack.
Yeah.
Old grandma over there that's hated her husband for 48,000 years.
Yeah.
She finna tell her, leave his
him.
hide.
Yeah.
And he ain't even thought about him equally yoked. And you gonna come in and straddle him, be like, we're unequally yoked. I
Yeah.
ain't doing it no more. I'm sorry.
He's
Pack
gonna
your
look
crap
at
and
you
get out
like
of
a
here.
deer in the headlight.
It's coming, Jack.
Yeah.
If my wife started taking up with other old women like that, they don't have to be just necessarily old, but women that can't keep a man, no, I'd cut that off.
Yeah.
I'm just being frank with you.
Mm-hmm.
No. Who you hanging out with? No. No.
Not good for the soul.
Maybe once every 2 or 3 months,
Yeah.
but you ain't doing it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That lady's got a problem.
Yeah.
All them men ain't
Because
bad.
it can rub off.
I done seen it.
Yeah. It can rub off.
You listen. If you a man, I told my uncle this, and I love him to pieces. He been married several times, and I said, Uncle, because he always told me, John, find me a good one. Find me a good one. I said, look, you done had 5.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now I don't know if all of them was good,
Right.
but surely out of 5, one of them
had
was.
to be. Yeah.
So it's starting to look bad on you, not on them.
Right.
So, same way with a woman. You done been through a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then, if anything, it just says you're a poor judge of character.
Yeah.
So, no, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Something's bad wrong, and we got to get to the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's people that get married, even in older age, that has no business getting married because they don't have the, what's the word? They don't know what's missing in them.
Right.
They don't know what's messed up in them before they go to get married. They need to figure out first what's going to fulfill them, what's going to make them happy.
Yeah.
What they need to get in touch with the Lord, get in touch with their problems, their situations, get it nipped in the bud before they ever try to get married.
Right, I agree.
Most people's trying to get married to fix something.
Right.
No, all you do is just to tear up some more.
Yeah.
And no, I'm a strong. Now that sounds funny, I know, and I'll probably get in trouble. But I'm telling you, if you're a man out there, and don't let that woman hang out with no women that ain't pleased by no man.
Yeah.
You just have trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
And I think as a mature woman, you should be able to see.
You should,
but
but you women can find the weirdest stuff to be unhappy about.
That is so true. I agree with you 100%.
I'm like, what do you mean?
You know, last week
You just crying?
Yeah. Last week we were talking about when I asked you about what is the woman's role in the house, and you said the best thing that a wife could do is keep peace in her home.
Yeah.
I am very, very high strung. Like I'm the one who's the disciplinary. I'm the one who takes care of everything. So when you said that, on my way home, I was thinking to myself, wow, you are a piece of crap. Like, you will get mad about the stupidest little things, and all you really need to do is keep peace in your home.
Yeah, keep peace.
And it made me realize, like, I have a short fuse. Little things get to me, but it's because it's constant. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a repeat thing. Like, they don't clean up after themselves, or, the basket's right there, and they throw their socks beside it. Stuff like that kind of gets annoying. And then eventually you, as a mom, I know, I end up losing my lid and going bonkers on somebody. And then I realized, sometimes I do that to Josh.
Yeah.
I'll be having a really crappy day, and
Yeah.
he'll come home expecting, me to say, "Hey, how are you? How was your day?" And I'm just like, "Ugh, don't even touch me,"
Right, right.
And I feel so guilty now that you say,
Yeah.
like, peace in the home. That makes so much sense to me
Josh,
now.
you welcome, Josh.
I'm trying. I'm so trying.
Well, look, have you ever thought about this? Samson kept laying his head in Delilah's lap.
Mm-hmm.
And Delilah was trying to turn him over to the Philistines.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always struggled with that. And I was like, Lord, what in the world? This man wasn't dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But what I always noticed is he was asleep.
Mm.
I noticed that the Bible said he would lay his head in her lap and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So what she did is she had a place of peace.
Mm.
Regardless of what she was trying to do, she created an atmosphere of peace.
Yeah.
And a man will stay in a peaceful home even if the woman hates his guts.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird situation, but men at the end of the day, all they want is peace.
Yeah.
And so if you create a home of peace, you'll be all right.
But shouldn't the man also create a home of peace?
If you married a hellion, you just married a hellion.
Yeah.
I can't help you there. However, and I'm speaking as far as most men that just want to work and come home and take care of life. They're not rowdy, they're not bonkers, they're not idiots. That's all they want.
Yeah.
And no, you have some men that are more drama queen than a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And women can be terrible drama queens.
Yeah.
And some men are just loud and boisterous and aggravating as snot. And, I don't know what you're going to do with them. You probably just need to poison them or something. I don't really know.
Don't really do that.
Right? No, don't do that. I was just kidding. However, I don't know how you would deal with that.
Right.
I've never, really none of them really my family per se, so I don't really have no experience. But I do know that most men, they just want
Peace
They just want peace.
and happiness. Yeah.
They don't want to have to come. One of my deals is I don't want to come home to a nasty house.
Yeah.
I don't want to come to a house and I have to fix my own supper.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't never had to do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't raised that way, so I sure ain't going to get married and live that way.
Yeah.
I'd be disappointed if my son lived that way
Yeah.
because he ain't been raised that way.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't want to have to look and scrounge around for clothes to go to work next day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things that makes a man's life a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And people would come on and say, well, what about the woman? What about her?
Yeah.
She's getting everything she needs. She's being looked after.
But is she?
Well, I mean, she should be. She's getting provided. I'm speaking now to a woman that's a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
There's plenty of women that work an 8-10 hour job as well.
Yeah.
Now, look, first of all, let me just be completely transparent. I don't believe they should.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they should be at the house.
I agree.
And I believe that's where you're going to get the most benefit, most reward from your marriage is if mama is being mama
Mm-hmm.
and daddy is being breadwinner.
Right.
That's what I believe you're going to see the greatest marital bliss
Mm-hmm.
if you follow that blueprint.
Yeah.
If you want to work, baby, work.
Yeah.
Now, I ain't putting you in hell.
Right.
I'm just saying you should be, in my opinion, at home taking care of the babies and creating a home
Mm-hmm.
for the man that's out there working 12, 14 hours a day
Yeah.
in the heat, in the snow, in the cold, or whatever environment he works in.
Yeah.
And he's coming home to you
Mm-hmm.
and he's putting his feet under your table and he's eating your groceries and he's laying in your bed.
Right.
And you should make a home out of whatever he brings you
Mm-hmm.
and pray about it and seek the Lord and let God multiply it and grow a beautiful, wonderful, healthy family.
Yeah.
To me that's the biblical version
Mm-hmm.
of marriage. So in that regard, if he's doing those things, if he's being faithful, he's coming home, he ain't going to the pool room after work and blowing $25 of the money he made. If he's being faithful and honorable, then she should be in the elements for him
Right.
because he's doing what he's called to do.
Right.
And so in that case, I think that there should be a home of peace. He shouldn't have to come home and work again.
Yeah.
I've known men in my life that they'd work all day to a wife. She sat at home. She was a homemaker, and they'd have to come home, wash the dishes.
Yeah.
Dude, now if she's sick, dying, something like that, yeah. But I mean, as a rule,
yeah,
getting them some boxed macaroni and say warm it up.
Mm-hmm.
No, you know that's not a relationship.
Right.
That's not a marriage. That's not. And
now you're not saying that a man can't help in the home.
No. I mean, I do a lot of cooking myself.
Right.
Because I enjoy to cook. Mm-hmm. However, if I went 6 months without cooking, she'd never say it's your night.
Right. Oh, of course not.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's your night to wash the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, shoot, I bought the dish. I ain't washing it.
Yeah.
Now I have washed dishes.
Mm-hmm.
My point is, I'm not above any of it.
Yeah.
But I married a woman that don't expect it.
Right.
Because she knows I'm doing my part.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, this is my part.
Right.
You do your part. This is my part. And so, it worked. So it's not a 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
This ain't a 50-50. This ain't a 90-10 or 60-40. This is one person.
Yeah.
We're one person.
Right.
And when I'm working there, she's working here.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow or another, it works that way.
Right.
When I'm up and at it, she's up and at it. We're one person.
Yeah.
So there ain't really no downtime for either one of us.
Right.
So because again, we're one person. We've got in our minds which direction we're going and how we're going to get there and what vehicle we chose to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're one person, one entity.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I don't ascribe to this modern day. Well, this week it's your chores and this week I don't ascribe to that bull.
Yeah.
And I think about the time you start putting perimeters on stuff, it's going to get muddy.
Absolutely.
And then you're like, well, you didn't do it last week.
Mm-hmm.
We're not kids.
Yeah.
You're my wife. I'm your husband.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science.
Right.
And so, and again, I know that's way too straightforward for people, but let's don't blur it.
Yeah.
You have a calling and I have a calling.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't create the calling. God created it.
Right.
He told Eve to be Adam's helpmate.
Mm.
I didn't tell her to do it.
Right.
I might would have called her something else.
Mm-hmm.
He called her his helpmate.
Right.
The woman was made for man.
Mm-hmm.
Man was not made for the woman.
Right.
I didn't say it. God said it.
Yeah.
I probably would have said it different.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have been woke and be like, we're going to have a 50-50 relationship.
Uh-huh.
But the Lord didn't say that.
Right.
It's not good that man should be alone.
Mm.
That's what God said.
Yeah.
Everything else was good.
Yeah.
God was good with just Adam.
Yeah.
But he said it ain't good that Adam to be alone.
Right.
God's like, I'm satisfied with you, Adam.
Mm.
But you're not satisfied.
That's right.
So woman was made for Adam. So again, if we really, really take this thing right on down biblically now, it can get ugly quick.
Yeah.
So ladies, just back up a little.
Mm-hmm.
It's
okay.
You're going to be all right.
You ain't seen me come out the chair yet, so that's good.
You're going to get took care of.
That's right.
But again, I understand that if you're not if you're not married to a man that does not believe the word of God and don't want to, fulfill his role as a husband, that you got hell to pay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, but I'm not talking to those.
Yeah.
I'm talking to a biblical marriage, a man that's doing his best,
Mm-hmm.
or at least striving to do his best. And in that capacity, then, he deserves a home of peace.
Mm-hmm.
He don't want to come home and listen to a bunch of drama that you and the women's been cackling about on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is y'all do.
Right.
I ain't interested in that. Jody start telling me stuff sometimes. I said, I don't want to hear that. I just tell her.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you ain't listening to me. I said, no, I turned you off when you said so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't listening to that. I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah.
My brain's fried.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to that goofy
I've been listening
junk.
to goofballs all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we don't want to hear that. And matter of fact, we don't even have to talk.
Yeah.
So it's things like that I, will create a real healthy relationship that, you really ain't gonna have many problems.
Mm-mm.
And so it's my pattern, according to what I find in the scripture, is that the woman should be the helpmate.
Yeah.
And she should teach the younger. That's what Paul said.
Yeah.
She should, be quick in the home and teach the younger. Be steady in the home, teach the younger, and do what, And even Solomon would say, make it a home.
Mm-hmm.
Take what he gives you and make it a home.
Right.
So he comes home, it's a castle. And it may not be that nice to you,
Right.
or to me, but to him it's a castle. It's his castle. And however, I know that today people do things different. Women, ladies have jobs, to each their own.
Yeah.
So I'm not against that. I'm not saying that they're damned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that a lot of my, a lot of my teaching and the way I'm going to structure things is the kind of marriage that I see.
Yeah.
Scripturally speaking, would be, the lady would be at home and the husband would be on the workforce.
So has that been that way your whole marriage, even when y'all first got married?
Oh yeah.
Before you had children?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we basically went into the marriage with again, this is things I talked about. So look, I don't want my wife on a job.
Yeah.
And I was useless when I first got married.
Yeah.
So I was very useless, but I knew what I wanted and what I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
And even though if I was useless, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
And so we were just useless together for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I believe those things you have to talk about.
Yeah.
My son, and talking about him again, he said he'd have conversations with certain girls and be like, well, I really want my wife to be at home. And of course, especially younger girls, they're like, well, I'm going to be I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to go into Mars.
Right.
Collect DNA from aliens, and they got all kind of ideas.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's not a negative.
Right.
However, is that going to fit with you?
Mm-hmm.
And so he has to make that decision.
Right.
If he wants a career woman. A cousin of mine came to me and he says, hey, I got these two options. He said, I got this girl. She's just a home girl. She's a homebody. She will, man, she'll make a good wife. He said, now I met this other one.
Mm.
So he's got two options.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan, you have to meet her. I said, really? He says, yeah. I met her in so-and-so, and she's got a career, and boy, she's hot. I said, really? I said, yeah. I said, well, yeah. I said, you got a decision to make. I said, it's fairly simple.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, what is it? I said, do you want a career woman or do you want a housewife? That's what it narrows down to.
Mm-hmm.
You told me right up. Yeah, that's what you told me.
Yeah.
So then he's like, oh, it is that simple, ain't it? I said, yeah, it's just that simple. Do you want the housewife
Mm-hmm.
or do you want the career woman? It's totally up to you.
Yeah.
Well, guess what he did? And he tried out the career woman,
Yeah.
but he settled for the housewife.
Yeah.
So a person needs to know what they want going in.
Right.
So I tell my boy, can you live with that?
Mm.
If you can't, make those arrangements now.
Right. And that's not
Be like,
the
I'm
right
sorry,
thing.
sweetie, because you should not ever date anybody that you have zero intention of marrying.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I borrowed this from somebody, but I think it's true because you're just practicing for divorce.
Right.
And because you break up with them about the time that you like, well, you knew all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are you doing? And why are you even extending this to that, all these emotions involved now?
Right.
And so I've always told him that. He ain't always done it, but I've always told him, look, don't date her unless you can see yourself marrying her.
Yeah.
Don't even go there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that a person needs, so there's certain questions somebody's got to have answer
Right.
before you go any further and be like, okay, is this a bridge we can cross or not?
Pretty much need to have the same goals in life as far as a family comes.
Yeah, you need to have some real similarities in that regard because that's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, because if you're not on the same page when it comes to a family or a marriage, then it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. You're opening yourself up for a major mess.
Yeah.
So you could get the unequally yoked thing right out of the, just go ahead and just nip that in the bud and be like, okay, is this someone that we're going to walk to heaven together or not?
Yeah.
If you're not, move on.
Yeah.
I mean, she ain't the one or he ain't the one.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not going to be conducive to your relationship with the Lord, move on.
Yeah.
There's no reason to even get started.
That's right.
However, if there's no doubt in my mind that two people I'm going to say this, and this is I've had people tell me I was stupid, crazy, bonkers, everything else. I do not believe that there's anything that two people can't figure out.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
If you want to, you can do it. You know, so, you know, in that, when I look at marriage and divorce through those lenses as well, I'm like, okay, it all gets down to whether or not you want to work it out or not. And if you want to work it out, no matter how rough it may be, you can work it out.
Yeah.
You can figure it out. But you've got to have a made up mind to do that.
Absolutely.
So, but no, as far as like I said too, the person that called me said, "Hey, am I supposed to go back, to my first wife?" And because there's a lot of doctrine, a lot of thought out there that people would teach that when you realize that you are, when you see, for instance, the truth of divorce, you'd be like, "Oops, I wasn't supposed to. I'm living in adultery because now I've married this second lady or second man. I got to go back to my first one." And I told this gentleman, and I says, no, I do not ascribe to that.
Yeah.
You can't break up this home in hopes of fixing that home. It don't make sense. Only thing we can do in moments like this is fall on the mercies of the Lord.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things that we don't know about. I'm sure there's things that quite possibly God sees things entirely different than we do in certain areas. So the only thing we can do at this point is fall on the mercies of the Lord.
Yeah.
And say, "Lord, here I am. This is it. I see the error of my ways."
Yeah.
What I have a struggle with is people that will be like, they'll hear something like this discussion, read it right out of the book, and still be like, "Well, we just ain't working out."
Yeah.
I feel for you.
Yeah.
Because you've literally looked God in the face and be like, "I don't care what your word says."
Right.
No. We need to really have a fear for the word of the Lord.
Yeah.
Because that is God speaking. His word is his voice.
Right.
And when he says, you don't put them away,
then you don't
put them away.
That's right.
It's just that simple. So, and I told this gentleman, I said, stay as you are. Just don't do it again. You know the truth now. Don't do it again.
Right. Don't
be fruity. Just, and I another question that I got, this guy said, he's a man, probably 40, 45 years old. He said, "So you're telling me that I can't get remarried?" And I said, "I'm telling you according to the Bible.
Right.
If you married this lady without cause, if you divorced this lady without cause, then for you to marry again, that's adultery."
Right.
Now, you do with that whatever you will.
Yeah.
If you want to get remarried, knock yourself out.
Right.
But no, you're in adultery. I mean, that's just all there is to it. So what if I'm at that place where I'm like, hold on, why would you gamble with that?
Right.
Again, it gets to the heart now. What's in your heart that's causing you to keep on and on and on? When you're admitting to me, you shouldn't have,
right.
And now you're going to do it again. And so stay as you are.
Yeah.
Stay single. Bear the cross, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to tell you, but that's the Bible. If you can't reconcile with your late wife,
right,
maybe she's moved on. If she's moved on, you ain't destroying that home.
Right.
Better
not anyway.
No, it's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Sister Christina said, "I do want my daughters to get an education, have options if they decide to be a housewife to a man deserving." Amen. That's wonderful. I would hope for that, but I don't want them in any way, shape, or form to feel stuck. I want them to be able to depend on themselves if need be. Maybe that's not biblical, and maybe that's my own upbringing, and I hope and pray that they find a godly man. I do too, sis, but I do want them to be able to depend on themselves if they have to. I want to speak to this because, it is terrible that Sister Christina even has to write this.
Yeah.
But because we are so depraved. This country is in such a mess.
Yeah.
Then this is a mother looking out for her daughters.
Yeah. And I've said this before.
Sure.
Like, about, so in my first marriage, it was very controlling. So I depended on him. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't work. I didn't have an income. So with all the things that were going on, that was another fear of leaving. Oh, yeah. I'm broke.
What am I going to do?
Yeah. How am I going to survive? How am I going to feed my children?
Yeah.
How am I going to? So, and I always said when I divorced him that I would never depend on another man ever again in my life.
Yeah.
Well, I lied to myself.
Made you plumb sexist for a minute, didn't it?
It did. And I swore by that for the longest time. And when I met Josh, first time we hung out, I asked him, I said, would you ever get married? Because he had never been married. And he said, yeah, I'd like to get married. And I was like, not me. I would never get married again. And a year later, we were married. So, you know, but I get where she's coming from, not wanting your daughter to depend on a man. Because if he ever did walk away, you would want her to be able to take care of herself. But I found on my own, I had nothing when I left him. I moved to a little rundown trailer in the middle of nowhere that cost me $300 from some scary looking old man that, you know, he just let me move in for $300, you know.
Right.
It could have been a pedophile for all I know. I don't know. But I get that. I get where she's coming from on that, because as a mom, you want your child to be able to take care of themselves. But at the same time, if you raise them right and you raise them in the church and you raise them to follow God's law, I don't feel that she would have to need that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does. I mean, I see 100%, just like what you said, where she's coming from. I mean, and part of me is in total agreement with it.
Yeah.
You know, the young ladies, because our society stinks. The way the young men's been taught.
Yeah.
The way the young women's been taught, it stinks.
Yeah.
I get it. I get why, you know, that we would see like, hey, you need a backup plan.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but I get it. You know, and so yes, I see 100% what they're saying. However, this is this is where I'm at. If I raise my girls on with a picture in front of them daily of what a godly man is supposed to look like. Now I have felt them.
Yeah.
All right, I have felt them. But if I make it my life's mission to show them each and every day what a godly man is supposed to look like, then I feel very confident that that's what they're going to look for.
Yeah.
They'll sort out. They'll sort through. They may run with the herd a minute, but they're coming back home and they're going to sort it out. However, I'm not saying that we shouldn't teach our girls trades.
Right.
You know, I'm not even suggesting that. I think that, especially in today's economy, and more education, the better.
Yeah. So
I'm not against education at all.
Yeah.
As long as education does not take you away from your biblical purpose.
Right.
So, so with that being said, you know, I get why a parent would feel that way, is because, you know, we're looking from a place where there's no good options.
Yeah.
You know, fortunately, I say fortunately, like a miracle happened. It really isn't a miracle. You know, I've got 2 daughters that are engaged to 2 good young men. Well, you say, well, you're just lucky. No. And so that's why I said I'm going to mark that off, because I'm not. They were raised to get 2 good, godly men.
Right. And I think from a daughter's standpoint, who has a father in their life since birth and on, who's a godly man, most daughters want to marry a man like their father.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think when
I believe that's true.
I think when it comes to a relationship, most children look at the type of relationship their parents have. So if you have an alcoholic, abuser, drug addict for a husband, and you have a mom who's just sorry as spaghetti noodles,
Yeah.
then that's what you're going to marry.
Yeah.
Because that's all you know. That's
Yeah.
all you've been taught.
Right.
So I think it comes back to how you're raised, how you're taught, but then you still have that little bit back in your head that says, well, there's that guy out there who
Yeah.
puts that
Wool over his face.
wool over his
Yeah.
face, and he's
Or over your face.
yeah, and he's all this, that, and the other until he marries you, and then his
Yep.
true colors shine.
Yeah, I think mama and daddy has to, daddy has to really step in and separate those devils. You know,
Yeah.
he's got to step in and be like, no.
Yeah.
You know, I tell you something. It's a little humorous, but you know the one thing that separates some of these boys from dating my daughters in the past was knowing they had to come talk to me first.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself was like,
I'm not doing that.
no, they wouldn't don't do it. And so, if a young man will come in, present himself, shake your hand, and ask you to date your daughter, there's something good there.
That's right.
Maybe not
And
in.
I asked you that. I asked you if the boys came to you and asked you
Oh yeah.
if
yeah.
they could have your daughter's hands in marriage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they.
I think that's 100% respect.
Oh yeah. Which Levi, his daddy Billy, brother Billy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
no question there.
Yeah. Brother Billy would have
Knocked him
tore
out.
his ears off.
Yeah.
So, but Levi is a perfect gentleman, and so he immediately. Aiden as well.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how Aiden was raised. It probably wasn't like we were raised. However, very respectful.
Yes, he
respects me. And I love him. Two boys. Them are good boys.
Yeah.
And good young men.
And Aiden loves the Lord.
They're going places.
Yeah.
And so, I think that if we raise our girls right, and of course I know Sister Christina's two girls, and I mean they're going to be
She's done
okay.
a good job.
She's doing an excellent job.
Yeah.
They're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And it's going to work out. It's all going to work out. They're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so, however, if I see Katie there, same. I want my daughter to be able to provide for herself and never be stuck. She said, I pray she finds a godly man that will take care of her. But I always want her to be able to stand on her own 2 feet.
Yeah.
And so I believe there's a lot of people that feel that way. And again, I'm not against it all. Higher education. Yeah, do whatever you feel you need to do.
Right.
Because we do live in a situation in a world that's fallen.
Yeah.
However, we got to make sure we put in our daughters and our sons the biblical perspective
Yeah.
of how a man and a woman should be, how they should act, react, what they should be doing, what should be their mission. As long as those things is fine tuned, then we'll be all right.
Well, I can say, I have 2 older boys. So my first child is 25, and then I have Dawson, who's 17. And what my oldest child grew up in compared to what Dawson grew up in, because I left his dad when he was 3 years old, so he don't quite remember a lot of things that Devin remembers.
Yeah.
I can see a difference in how they treat a woman.
Yeah.
So I can see that my son, my oldest son, has some of his dad's intentions of how he treated a woman.
Yeah.
And then I see Dawson, he was 6 years old when I started dating Josh. I can see the difference in how he's the sweetest, kindest. I mean, I had to tell him he couldn't have a girlfriend anymore because he would just love these girls so much, and then they would rip his heart out of his chest, and it would kill me, as his mom. I just want to go beat her up, I'm like, she better be glad she ain't 18. I'd whoop her butt.
You're going to catch a charge.
Yeah, but I can see the difference in, not that they were raised any different when it comes to me. They were taught the same way, but the environmental difference.
Yeah.
Is a big drastic difference.
Yeah.
So not that I want more from my oldest son, and he does have a girlfriend that they've been together for many, many years, and he told me I could see myself marrying her, but you got to fix some things before that happens.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm glad we're having these podcasts, because I want my boy and my daughter to see these things and say, hey, this is how
look at things different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I train them, teach them.
Yeah.
I know that I follow a guy online and it's stuff that we already do. Just naturally, we grew up doing it, but he's encouraging all of your younger families. He said, hey, you need to have, the mother needs to just, her and the daughters go and, go out and stay somewhere for a day or two and, just be together, just them two, the females.
Yeah.
He said, because the conversations are different.
Yeah.
And he said, and the fathers need to take the son and you need to go out and camp and just you and him because the conversations are different.
Right.
Well, I grew up doing that with my boy. We have conversations, and when it's just him and I, it's totally different than me and him and some of the girls, his sisters.
Right.
So get teaching in them.
Yeah.
Get things in them. Plant seeds.
But you can't teach them and plant seeds if you're not doing what you're teaching. So it's called more like practice what you preach type of thing. So you can't say, oh, you got to be with a godly man, and you and your husband are out at the bar 5 hours later getting drunk. So
right. You're cracking a beer and son, you really need to love the Lord.
Right.
Yeah, that's the truth. And, even with my boy, which he's 18 now, but I've been very transparent with him. Well, this is where I messed up.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Right.
It hurts, bro. You don't want to do that. And so, it's to me, we've more good teaching has been done with just him and I just chatting because he's listening.
And I think they learn from experience, from your experience.
They do.
Yeah.
And I tell him these things. I said, I wish somebody would have told me what I'm about to tell you because they didn't.
Yeah, in my family, things like that weren't talked about.
No. It wasn't talked about. And I don't know if it was just like voodoo or something. People were scared to just talk about it. Or, back in the day, people didn't air their laundry out like what we're doing right now. They wouldn't do that. It was all secretive, And today, everything's way more shouted from the rooftop type situation. But it just wasn't talked about.
Right.
And so you really had to relearn what they had done learn. The
only time it was talked about was when the ladies were at the coffee shop, and they were like, did you see old Sally going into John Boy's house over there yesterday?
That's right.
Oh.
So Sister Christine said, it is so sad we have to feel this way in this day and age. Amen. It's terrible, but it's, in a lot of cases, it's justified. My son Jonathan, Charity, said, now I grew up, Charity lived with our family for a little while. She was the meanest woman ever, boy. She was so mean to me. I'm just kidding, Charity. We loved Charity. And I loved her daddy. You talking about play a guitar and sing. Brother Willie Wright. My God, he was phenomenal. She said, my son Jonathan will be 21 this year. Thanking God that he doesn't run the streets and around with women. He was raised to be like the world, but to be set apart for the world. Yes, amen. He wasn't raised to be. Raise your child and teach them with your actions. Amen. So, do you know that statistics say that you could shut down, literally empty, all the prisons, the juvenile detentions by doing one thing, and that is putting the father back in the home. Now think of that.
Yeah.
So if biblical marriage was taught before they ever slipped into the back seat of the automobile, and before they ever walked down an aisle, if biblical marriage was just set down and discussed, I will say this: even if you don't believe in God, biblical marriage will still work.
Oh yeah.
Even if you I don't know about this Jesus thing, follow the pattern.
Yeah.
Of the Bible, it would work. It'll work. It's just good common sense.
Right.
And so, to think of that the prisons would have to close, juvenile delinquents, all these detention centers, insane asylums. I mean, the list is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just by putting the fathers in the homes.
Yeah.
So fathers have a huge job.
Yeah, I agree.
To see fathers that seem to be just like in their own little world, wife and kids coming to church and fathers walking around like a duck in a new pond. If he was a duck, he'd drown.
Yeah.
Just looking head all in the clouds. I'm like, dude, you need to get engaged, man.
Yeah.
And I don't mean engaged to another woman. I mean you need to get engaged in the Lord and life, and make a difference in your family, because it ain't gonna be long. They're gonna be bigger than you.
That's right.
And your kids are gonna be flipping you a bird and telling you they hate you, slapping you.
Yeah.
And there ain't nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You better be putting something in them today, to where they're gonna respect you in the future.
Yeah.
Or they gonna put you in some nursing home somewhere.